G'day guys, one thing I did fail to cover in this video, so I thought I'd add it in at the beginning, is when you are sizing your brass and you're bumping the shoulder back on your casing, just remember that that has a direct relationship with your seating depth. So it's not just seating the bullet depth at the last part of the process when you're loading rounds. It is in fact important to make sure that you're consistently setting up your die and getting that shoulder bump consistent as well, because that is also going to affect your seating depth. So just thought I'd clarify that because I did sort of skim over that part, but I hope you enjoy this video. The topic is tips and tricks for reloading. I hope you enjoy. G'day everyone, welcome back to Controlled Recoil. So I thought I'd just do a video on some tips and tricks around reloading and developing a new load for your rifle, and making sure that it's a streamlined process without chasing your tail too much. And it's certainly stuff that I wish I'd have been told when I first started reloading. I've certainly learned some hard lessons on it and wasted a lot of cash and a lot of time learning the hard way, essentially. That being said, I've been really lucky to be hanging out with the right people, in contact with the right people that are very, very good at what they do, and that's really helped me a lot as well. So there's a lot of tips and stuff here. It's not all stuff that I've found out the hard way. Some of it's been very, very helpful information that I'm very grateful to be given. And I thought I'd pass that on. So yeah, certainly not everything here it's not like I'm breaking new ground here. There's still plenty of people that will be doing this, but I thought it might be nice to sort of streamline it for people starting out and sort of have it all in one location. So just to be clear, this isn't a full reloading tutorial. You're going to need to, it's a huge topic, so you're going to need to read some manuals and go over that and make sure you got a good understanding of it. But for the people that are already doing it, here's some things. This is just the way I do it, guys. There'll be other ways out there, and if you do have a really efficient way of generating up a load for your rifle, make sure you drop it in the comments. But essentially what I do is I've moved away. So we're going to talk about dies to begin with, the type of dies that I'm using for sizing my brass. I do a two-step process on that, and I'll tell you the reasons why, and then we'll move on to actually developing the load, so your powder charge and your projectile seating depth, and go over that. And I sort of do that in two stages as well. So we'll start off. This is the die that I started off with. This is just a full length die, pretty standard if you order a set or whatever. I'll just open it up here and show you guys, for those that are unfamiliar with it, what I'm talking about. So here you have the expander mandrel in there. So you've got your decapping pin here, that when you size the case, it sizes the body, and that decapping pin takes your primer out. But you see here that you've got that larger device above the decapping pin that's on that same spindle, and that is your expander mandrel. So what you do essentially with that is, when it runs up, it sizes the case down, pushes the primer out, and then it pulls that expander mandrel back up and sizes the neck of the case back out to the desired caliber. The problem with that is you're working the brass twice. You're sizing it down, and then you're basically stretching it back out again. And this literally cuts your brass life almost in half, because you're working it twice rather than once. The other issue with that is, as you pull it back up, it's stretching the brass a little more, and you will find you need to trim more often. And along with that, the concentricity of your brass, so how straight your case is, can be affected. It's not always affected, but most of the time when you start pulling that back up through, you will not find as good a results as if you weren't doing that. So I have moved away from them, and I've gone to a two-step process. So I'll just show you now what I'm using instead, and I'll explain why. So I've gone to a Lee collet die. This is a neck sizing die only. It also has a decapping pin, so you get rid of the primer while you neck size. The benefit of this here, even though it's now a two-step process, because I'm going to body size as well, but this doesn't need any lubricant to use this, so it's actually really fast, and you don't really lose a lot of time, even though there's an extra step. But the reason why I use that is it only sizes the neck down. There's no expanding it back, and it's only touching the neck and removing the primer. I then use a Redding body die. Now, these things are great, and this obviously does the job that the full length die was going to do, and that is size your brass down, the body of the brass, as well as bump the shoulder down a couple of thousandths of an inch. So I run about 1/1000th of an inch bump on the shoulder. Some people swear by going to 2. It will vary a little bit. The main thing is you want to be able to run your bolt without that tight feeling when you close the bolt. There is actually a trick that we'll talk about in another video where you can set that up. Most people know it anyway, but it's basically taking the firing pin out so there's no tension on your bolt and just running a case through, and essentially when it gets to the point where it just drops down nice and smooth, you've got to the right bump on the shoulder, whatever that may be. So it's going to vary a little bit between rifle to rifle, but the reason why it's important to full length resize, guys, is everything needs to be consistent. Consistency equals accuracy, and if you're just neck sizing, eventually you're going to have to full length resize anyway, because your brass will grow and grow and grow after firings, and then it'll also start getting tight. And in hunting applications, you really do run the risk of having a jam just with grit and debris getting into your action and it being such a tight fit. So really do recommend, don't just neck size, make sure you get that body die as well. But obviously using the combination of those two dies, you've removed having that expander mandrel that's sizing, you know, that's working your brass twice and stretching it a bit. So I've gained a lot more accuracy since start doing that, as well as actually getting a bit, like, your brass is just more consistent as well, basically. So that's pretty cool. Thought I'd just put that out there. I really do recommend it. The next thing, I mean, I was still getting really good groups with the standard die. You still can use it, there's nothing wrong with it, but I do find the way superior with the 2-stage process. We're going to move on now to developing the load itself. So we're going to talk about the powder charge. I do the powder charge and the seating depth in 2 stages rather than trying to do it all at the same time. The main reason for this is you can isolate what you're doing and you can see what effect it's having, and you're only changing one thing at a time, so it's very measurable. You're not changing seating depth and your powder charge and then wondering which of the two made the difference, for better or worse, whatever. So what I use is a chronograph. You'll need one of them anyway to do this precision stuff, so I recommend investing in one. You don't need to go and get the most expensive one. However, some of the new ones out now are really awesome. Just be aware some don't work so well with suppressors fitted, so just be careful on what system you're using. But a good idea is to just go in with a group of mates and all pay a percentage of it, and it makes it cheaper. It's not something you're using every day, and you can just use it as needed, and it just makes it more affordable, but you will need one anyway. It's a very valuable tool. What I do is I'll work up in 0.5, say 0.4 grain increments, and I will shoot it over the chronograph with this won't be worrying about the group size too much at this stage, and I'll be looking for velocity spreads. And once you'll get to a really low velocity spread, it's basically it's an indication that you've got a really consistent pressure curve and your burn rate of your powders in a real stable place. And obviously we need consistent velocity, so you'll usually get it down into the teens, and then often there'll be a place there where you should be able to, as long as your measuring systems are good, get it into the sort of single digits. Hopefully that's the goal, and it is more than doable if you're careful about it. So this will depend a wee bit on the powder you're using as well and how temperature sensitive it is and things like that, but essentially you find that stable place where you're getting really consistent velocities, and then you tune the accuracy by changing your seating depth. And you can do this with, I mean, seating depth seems to be the bit where the accuracy really comes in, and you can really fine tune it. So what I'll do is I'll have the standard seating depth in your manual, and then I'll slowly bring it out in increments, maybe 4 or 5 thousandths of an inch. And usually it's closer to the far end of things. Usually I'll try and take it out as far as the magazine will accept it within reason. And obviously any magazine rifle you will be limited to this, so that's just something that you're going to have to deal with depending on the brand of rifle. I use a Tikka. You do have the option in Tikkas to extend that magazine length, just because all Tikkas are long actions, so you can swap the mag out, adjust the bolt stop, and run a long action magazine. So you have got a bit more option in the Tikka if you're running a short action caliber, but for other guns you'll just have to work with what you've got. usually you seat your bullets out a little further, and usually this is where you see better accuracy. So when you move out in those increments, you'll get to a point where the groups hopefully are tightening up really nice. When you get to that point and you're really satisfied with your accuracy, go a little bit further. And the reason for this is you've obviously hit an accuracy node, okay? You want to be at the front of that accuracy node. And what I mean by this is, if this is your barrel and this is your projectile, there's always going to be a microscopic bit of bullet jump happening unless you've crushed it in and you're going close to the lands. I wouldn't recommend that, but you can get very close. And what this does is it allows you to find the optimum spot where you're getting optimum accuracy, and then move past that until you start losing accuracy again. And then once you do that, bring it back to the longest overall length that you had where you still had that accuracy. And what it means is, if this is where the accuracy starts, this is your barrel, this is your projectile, and it's still accurate here, by making sure you're seating it at the longest point where it's closest to the lands, as the lands erode away, you're going to stay in that accuracy node for longer. If you're only just at the beginning of the accuracy node, as you put hundreds of rounds through your rifle, those lands are going to erode, and you're going to be out of that accuracy node, if that makes sense. So really important to try and get at the front part of the accuracy node, and that means you're going to spend more time in that accuracy node without having to change your seating depth of your bullets. So hopefully that makes sense. Basically, yeah, the things to remember: get your Lee collet die to do your neck sizing. That's the one you don't need lubricant for. You will of course need to use lubricant on your sizing die as usual, your body die, and that's going to size the body and bump that shoulder back a little bit to make for reliable and consistency when you're shooting, reliability. And then moving on to your load development, do those powder charges, chronograph your rounds, all using the same seating depth. Then take that powder charge that shows the most promise with your velocity spreads when they're nice and low, and then tune accuracy with the seating depth. And you can tune powder charge, after that's all dialed in. You can really muck around with the finished product within 1 or 2 grain, 0.1 or 2 grains. But usually once you do that, you're already just fine-tuning something that's already shooting really well. So I hope that helps. I hope it saves you guys a lot of time. Again, let me know if anyone's got any advice, drop it in the comments. And yeah, any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. So thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.